give a warm welcome to the hosts of The Bride of Alternate Ending.
Hello, ghouls and goblins, and welcome back to Bride of Alternate Ending, the horror sideshow from the Alternate Ending Extended Universe.
Wow, I was literally just even like pondering in my brain that we used to make fun jokes about how you didn't know how to introduce our podcast, and that you haven't had a problem with that for the last few episodes, and then you came back. I'm very excited.
Well, see, I decided I should add something because I was like, we kind of established what Bride. Sorry, I'm Brennan, by the way. That's Tim, who's criticizing it.
That was not criticism. That was enthusiasm.
No. We are analyzing. We're
analyzing.
Together.
We are dissecting what just happened. But yes, I am Tim, critic in residence here at Alternate Ending. You probably know this. You're listening to this podcast. You've been to the website.
Yeah, exactly. But I was thinking, so this show started as a Patreon only show, and it has expanded to the plebes of on the free side of things. So
they're not plebes; they're our friends.
Yeah, I'm friends with
we love all of our listeners equally.
Of course. Look, I am also a plebe. It's fine.
Fair enough.
But I was like, I feel like I should actually set the show of what the fuck we actually are doing on Bride of Alternate Ending, because we haven't particularly done that for the regular people.
That's probably true. That's probably fair.
So I need to figure out my spiel.
To be clear, I was less talking about the terms you were using and more the scary horror movie guy voice you were starting to adopt.
Oh, okay. Well, see, when I was doing a mic check earlier, I really kind of walked ass backward into like kind of a Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland kind of voice, and so I've just been kind of feeling myself today.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That I was not thinking that was a Mad Hatter voice.
That was not it. Okay. I'm just saying like voices are happening today.
Oh, gotcha. That felt more like you were auditioning for the newest Rob Zombie picture voice.
Oh. I'll have to go back and listen to this recording because I did not feel that. My throat didn't feel Rob Zombie, but thank you.
Well, I'm not saying you got the part in the Rob Zombie film, just that you were doing kind of a like badass. We're Bride of Alternate Ending sort of thing going on.
Oh God, welcome to Spike TV.
Sort of that vibe. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no. Well, then I really fucked it up. Yeah, look, I didn't want the part in the Rob Zombie movie. He hasn't made a movie that hasn't been divisive.
He hasn't made a movie that hasn't been divisive, but he's also made a lot of movies that I like. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I don't want to be part of that. Anyway, what we are here to talk about is a movie that's not divisive. Everyone loves it. Everyone remembers it.
Yep, it is one of the modern classics of the horror genre.
Yes, we are dragging a skeleton out of the closet of Oscar-nominated actress Kristen Stewart. She is nominated for Spencer this year. But before she played Princess Diana, before she even played Bella from Twilight, she was a teenager in 2007, and she starred in this haunted house picture called The Messengers.
She sure did. And I will say, when Twilight happened, I feel like there was a lot of, and we will inevitably get to sort of the Kristen Stewart of it, because it's kind of the thing we're here to talk about.
Mm.
But critics who were very much having a good time taking potshots at Twilight in 2008, as I'm sure we all remember, I think we're mostly in talking about Stewart's performance in that film. I think we're primarily going back to that Sean Penn wilderness hippie movie, Into the Wild, where she had a small role. And I think a lot of people were sort of thrown by her presence in that movie. Weirdly, The Messengers was the film I chiefly had as like, this is who Kristen Stewart is when I saw Twilight. So I think I was less shocked by the pivot to vampire movie from Sean Penn directed Oscar bait than other people were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And for me, I mean, I certainly did not have a bead on the name Kristen Stewart before Twilight, but I had seen her in like Catch That Kid and Zathura: A Space Adventure. So it was not a shock to me that she was around.
Yeah, no, she actually been kicking around for a bit. Besides the films we've talked about, she was also the daughter in Panic Room, the David Fincher film starring Jodie Foster. And I think she got some good notes from that. Like, I think people were like, hey, this is a good child actor. So she, prior to 2007, is like a presence. She's not a big presence. She's not like a headlining star. Although she is the headlining star of this movie. She was given the first credit. But she's someone who's been around, and she's been around in movies that are sufficiently well budgeted and sufficiently widely released that I think people recognize her face more or less.
Yeah, and the thing about The Messengers is that I would argue that the entire casting process is, who are the people we can get who are not A-list but who are like reliable and serviceable actors, and she would have been like totally fitting on that list.
That is a perfect summary of this cast list. We have Kristen Stewart, we have Dylan McDermott, who is maybe the most serviceable actor of all serviceable actors in a way.
The serviceablest.
He is the most. You just need a body to read lines, and to read the lines correctly. You don't just want someone reciting. You want someone who's actually breaking down the lines, but you don't necessarily care if he has such things as screen presence or insight into his characters. You just need a present. You need a figure, a humanoid figure in front of the camera.
You need a body to model his new spring line of scoop neck tees and tanks.
Exactly. And I have a hard time imagining Dylan McDermott wearing literally anything other than a scoop neck tee, now that you put it that way.
Mm-hmm. No, it is completely... It is... He should have one. He should have a Target brand. I don't know why he doesn't.
Exactly. And his Target brand would all just be like solid color earth tone t-shirts.
Yep, with like a little hole in the shoulder or like a smudge of grease somewhere.
But so we've got Dylan McDermott, we've got Penelope Ann Miller, we have John Corbett. So very, very like good, solid diner food cast of actors here.
Yeah, and also as the teen boy Bobby, we have Dustin Milligan, who is at this time much less of a presence, but he was Ted on Schitt's Creek, and he's just one of those Canadian boys who was bouncing around the industry at this time.
I mean, we need the Canadian boys for when we shoot movies like this in Canada. In fact, we have the X-Files' own William B. Davis is also in the cast of this movie in a small role. So.
Oh, is he the like the banker guy?
The banker guy.
The guy with the contract who shows up?
Oh, yes. I thought you were talking about the X-Files. Like,
no,
banker
sorry.
guy in the X-Files.
No, yeah, in this movie.
Yes. He's the one who keeps trying to get Dylan McDermott to sell the farm.
Yes. Okay, great. Yes, we should probably talk about the plot.
We should.
Since you have seen this movie twice, would you like to run us through the plot briefly?
I'll bet I can. So here is the plot of The Messengers. A family arrives at a small, isolated farmhouse. Actually, not very small, very kind of weirdly large, isolated farmhouse, and it is haunted. And that is the plot of The Messengers. Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can add some flavor. They are Dylan McDermott. He couldn't make it in the city, so he's moving to a small town to grow sunflowers, which I guess is a thing that somebody has to do.
In fact, it was no less a city than Chicago that he couldn't make it in. So he's from my hometown. So I love that about
congrats. It. Yeah. You know, it's just such a layered character.
Exactly.
Right below the lip of the scoop neck, there's a Chicago tattoo. It just says Chicago in script.
And I feel he's one of those people who does the Chicago flag. You know, that 2 teal strips with 5 red stars or 4 red stars. He's one of those.
I don't, but I will look into that.
It's a thing that people who get tattoos and live in Chicago frequently are sporting.
Okay, well, I'll have to take a closer look.
Yes.
I mean, I'm already planning on going through his scenes frame by frame, but
obviously,
so I'll be able to.
Yes. So the Solomon family, led by Dylan McDermott, has just left Chicago for, as you point out, a sunflower farm in North Dakota, played by Saskatchewan, which is sort of North Dakota-ish.
Yeah, North Dakota's very close to Canada. One might argue as close as you can get without being Canada.
That is in fact what it is.
Yeah, and yes.
But no, were you going to say something catty about North Dakota? Because I will certainly make room for you to do that.
No, I mean, North Dakota is much closer to you. I have no beef with North
Okay.
Dakota. It can't hurt me. It's really far away.
That's fair. Well, it's where we get our sunflower seeds from, so we need it.
Is that is that a joke or is that actually a thing?
I don't have any idea.
Okay.
Sunflower seeds, it feels like one of those things where like 90% of our sunflower seed supply probably comes from like Thailand or something.
Yeah, no, that feels right. And again, that's the thing. Somebody must be a sunflower farmer, but it felt very peculiar to me that that's what this movie's about.
It indeed. Well, you need something, you need a good visual hook, and this movie's visual hook is we're a horror movie, but we're going to take place in a big field full of sunflowers. It's incongruous. And from the incongruity derive scares.
I get that, and I also enjoy horror that is unafraid of being set in the daylight, which is a kind of primary function of this movie.
That actually is one of the things. I think I've probably already made it more or less clear. I won't be saying many nice things about The Messengers. One of the things I would say nice, it is a daylight horror movie, and those are always brave. Because it's harder. You don't have as many places to hide as a filmmaker.
Yeah, that is always really interesting. And this movie doesn't hide anything, and it maybe should. Anyway, so it turns out, okay, so we're meant to suss this out over the course of the movie, but why would you bother? So I'm going to spoil it, I guess, what's happening. So essentially, at least as far as I can tell from a little bit of a muddy third act, the original family that lived in this house, they were killed Amityville style by their father.
Yes, and technically that is a surprise, but it is also really only a surprise in that by the point that the film has to reveal who the killer is, it has only given us two options, and we haven't seen William B. Davis for quite some time at that point.
Yeah, but there is there's an intro that's black and white because of the past.
It is because of the past, and did you notice that the intro then does that sort of like flash up to white? And then becomes color when it arrives in the present.
You know what? Didn't think about it.
It's the last thing that happens in the credit sequence. Is a kind of like burst of white.
No, I was just kidding. It is a very on the nose situation. So basically, the intro is kind of elliptical in the sense of whether or not they are being haunted by ghosts or just being dragged around by a physical presence. Turns out it is a physical presence, but now the dead people are ghosts, and they're basically creeping and creaking around and basically okay. So the ghosts almost instantly manifest the second that the Solomon family steps into the room.
The film's particular gimmick being a weird word to use for it, is that it is easier for younger people to see ghosts. And so our new family, led by Dylan McDermott as the paterfamilias of this great sunflower seed empire, his wife Denise is played by Penelope Ann Miller. His sullen teenage daughter Jess is played by Kristen Stewart, of course. And there is a toddler son, Ben, who's played by the twins Evan and Theodore Turner. Ben has, in the tragic backstory that explains why Jess is so sullen, there was some manner of accident that involved, I believe Jess was drunk driving with Ben in the car and crashed, and everyone survived, but Ben has been rendered mute. Whether physically or through some sort of emotional trauma, it's not really explained. But so we have this like 3-year-old who doesn't speak, but does, grin and laugh and point. And he can immediately see these ghosts just skittering through the house.
Yes. Skittering is a very good way of putting it too.
They skitter. There is no other word to describe it.
Yeah, they are very clear. I mean, they look like... it's very clearly inspired by the J-horror boom of the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And this was directed by the Pang brothers, who made the Hong Kong film The Eye, which was later made into the Jessica Alba film The Eye in America.
It sure was. And I will say, when I first saw this film in 2007, I had not seen The Eye. And I believe the American remake had not yet come out at that point. I have since seen the original Hong Kong, The Eye. It's solid. It is not.
Okay.
It's not anyone's favorite, but it's solid.
Okay, see, because I've heard solid things about The Eye, and when I saw that they had made this movie, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe something will, so there will be some kernel of something in this, and there really wasn't. I'm willing to chalk it up to, not like English as a second language directors working in the English language for the first time and maybe not being able to get their vision across.
Mm-hmm.
But if The Eye isn't like as good as all of that necessarily, maybe this is just the next step down of, like a kind of sophomore slump kind of thing.
No, I'd say The Eye is good enough that you would feel comfortable putting these people in control of a movie.
Okay, that's good. So maybe it's just the case of like when Nakata Hideo came to do The Ring 2 in the US and it was just an absolute pile of bullshit.
Easily could be.
Okay, well that's good to know. But yeah, so the ghost is a very Asian inflected, pale face, stringy hair, but especially in the kind of like CGI contortions on the ceiling that she's doing. It's very, very...
There's one big showcase scene for the ghost where we see it like crawl up a wall and across the ceiling, and the whole time the little boy is just like sort of tracking it and watching it. And it is... There's a thing that the filmmakers do that I respect and admire, and I think was a good choice at the level of choice making, which is to have the thing move in a sort of lower frame rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know exactly what's going on if the CGI is like at 16 frames per second or so. It's got to be even divisible into 24. But it's moving, it's juddering as it moves, and that's cool. It makes it feel, ooh, this spooky thing is not in the same like time continuum as the rest of what's going on, and that seems like as reasonable a way to present a ghost as anything else.
Yeah, and it was reasonable about 8 years earlier when William Malone did it in The House on Haunted Hill, too.
I'm not saying it's a fresh idea. I'm saying it's not an idea that everyone uses.
Yes.
In execution, it ends up looking like stop-motion animation that was not done by one of the good stop-motion animators.
Yeah, it looks extremely silly. It is a almost... I wouldn't say absurd, because I wouldn't say there's like a camp value to this movie, but it is just a deeply ineffective horror film.
It is deeply ineffective, and I think a big part of the reason why, and that shot I think is one of the specific places where you really can tell this, the music, and let me just quickly remind myself who did the score, because they're working hard. Joseph de Loduca, who I believe has some actual credits that we care about to his name. Yeah, did the first two Evil Deads, did Army of Darkness. Oh, so Sam Raimi guy, and we should potentially point out this is a Sam Raimi production. Like,
yes,
in addition to being
from Ghost House Pictures.
From Ghost House Pictures. Back when Sam Raimi was sort of trying to dabble in producing more than just remakes of his own films. So Loduca is really going overboard in trying to make this sound scary. But between the sunlight and between the very been there, done that feeling of the ghost designs, and I think most importantly, the little boy is never scared. Like, the 3-year-old who's seeing the ghosts is always just super, he thinks they're cool. And like, you see that in his like big face, and he's just kind of staring and like trying to anticipate where is he going to see them next. I don't have anything in the film other than the music telling me that this is scary, and so it's not.
Yeah, and actually the only thing that I thought was effective in any way as a visual evocation of horror, it actually largely relies on at least a music cue as well. There's a toy that's a major thing, that's a like a little car that when it rolls it plays Old MacDonald Has a Farm.
Yeah.
And there's a part where Kristen Stewart drops it down the basement stairs, and it's going down one step at a time and playing like 2 disjointed notes of Old MacDonald each time it does. And that, I think, is the only scene where I was like, oh, that's building an atmosphere for me.
I would agree. I think that scene works better than any other in terms of being a horror film. And, I think there's a couple other things as well. First off, you've got Kristen Stewart, so you've got an adult actor who's playing scared. And to be clear, I don't think the twins playing the toddler are bad at playing the character. I think the conception of that character was, well, he's not scared, and it's a sort of like a Close Encounters, like it's a scary thing, but the little boy sees through it and sees why it's wonderful. So we have Kristen Stewart acting scared. We have Basement. Basements are scary places also. As I said, it's bold to make a daylight horror film because the filmmakers have nowhere to hide. As you said, they should have maybe tried to hide a little bit, and basements are also dark, and it's really the only dark sequence in the movie.
No, that's really true. And then there's the
there's a couple other dark sequences, but
yeah, like when the parents go out for the night and then everything starts rattling and shaking. I did like the gag of the stairwell banister kind of bending is kind of neat.
That's kind of neat. It feels like not what this film is doing, but anything this film does that works for me, I will take.
Yes, exactly. Because they are like trying to do the thing of Kristen Stewart, the mom, Denise, does not believe a single thing that Kristen Stewart says or does at any point. Like, there's this really palpable mistrust between this mother and her daughter because of this horrible thing that happened, which is almost effective in a family drama kind of way.
It's almost effective. I think it more lives in the script than the performances, honestly.
Yeah, well, I do think Penelope Ann Miller is giving the weakest performance in this movie.
I think that's true. And for that to be true of an actor who's in the same ensemble as John Corbett is a lot.
Well, John Corbett gets to disappear behind a ridiculous Fu Manchu and wig.
Damn.
It's deeply silly.
It's really stupid.
Yeah, you're right. He shouldn't be. I mean, he's not effective in this role of kind of like a grizzled, migrant worker he's basically that guy in Friday the 13th Part 5 who shows up at the neighbor's house, that hillbilly lady. He's like, I'll clean out the chicken shit if you give me a hot meal.
He's basically exactly that. Yes.
Yeah. So you cast John Corbett as that person.
And I will say, we talked about the sort of meat and potatoes quality of the cast and how Kristen Stewart really wasn't a thing yet. I think it is worth mentioning, at the time this came out, I think he for sure would have been the most prominent actor of this ensemble.
Oh, yeah, I would say so.
This is, what, 4 years after Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yeah, 4 years after Big Fat Greek Wedding, a solid probably 8 years after Sex and the City. He was a known quantity at this point.
Yeah, no, he is definitely the name in this cast. And as such, gets kind of the most, like, flashy, showy role. As we said, it's kind of ridiculous looking. He's kind of playing against type as this, like, grizzled old ranch hand at the old sunflower seed ranch. I know that I need to not be, like, obsessed with it being a sunflower farm, but it's weird.
It is. You see, again, that's the thing where every time I looked at it, I was like, this is weird, but this exists somewhere, but it just doesn't feel right.
I will also say, according to my extremely cursory research, it does not correctly represent sunflower farming. Apparently, you do not harvest sunflowers until they have fully died, and it's like November.
Oh, good to know. Yeah, they just kind of... Are they harvesting, or they're just kind of like fiddling? And just kind of
there's the sequence where Dylan McDermott and John Corbett are like we see John Corbett sort of very like tough old cowboy style, like torch a sunflower seed to test and see if it's ready yet, and he's like, we're getting close, and
oh yeah, he licks his finger, puts it up to the wind.
This little Malachi moment of just seeing like the working class in their prime, just feeling the sort of spiritual essence of them sunflowers.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It actually, it also that stuff. It's very Minari when Stephen Yeun is working with that like grizzled white guy dowsing for water. It is
Minari, and I actually had that specific thought for about 5 seconds early in the John Corbett part of the film.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a lot to think about, and it says a lot that it's more distracting to just stare at what's going on with the sunflowers than anything with the ghosts in the center of the movie.
Well, because the ghosts aren't new. The ghosts, by this point in time, we've seen these ghosts. If you are interested in American horror cinema enough to have seen The Messengers, by 2007, you've seen these exact ghosts. You haven't seen sunflowers. So the sunflars are the thing that's new here.
No, that's true. And they're really trying to hit you with the ghosts. It has a very late 2000s attention span in which they do not build at all.
Oh no.
I mean, well, they at least start at a 7 and then go up to a 10.
Sure.
Well,
because at least initially we only see them as like reflections. Like the little boy sees one in the back of a spoon, which is a cool shot. Spoon makes it all bendy and wide. I like that.
Yeah, and there's a gag where I believe it's Kristen Stewart who's looking through a keyhole, and I was like, are they just recreating the production logo for Ghost House Pictures?
I hadn't thought about that. That's great.
Yeah, so that was kind of something. But then there's a very stupid scare scene too, where Dylan McDermott sees his son wandering around his son's room. Like, so he sees his child in the room where his child is supposed to be, and he's like, Ben? And he's slowly approaching the door and just scared for some reason of the person being in the place where the person is supposed to be.
Right.
And not just... And again, he thinks it's his son, so why doesn't he just walk over and open the door and say, hey, I don't... It's just... I don't know. It's stupid. Anyway, is there anything else? Is there anything positive you would like to say before the other stuff?
I think it's cool that William B. Davis is getting work at this point.
Yeah,
he always made me happy on the X-Files. I think it's cool to cast him as a red herring. I think it shows a level of intertextuality. You're like, well, they're aware that he was the bad guy in the X-Files. We'll make him a benign absent figure who will just sort of disappear from the movie about a half of the way through.
Yeah, he's in what, 2 scenes max?
2 or 3, I believe it is 2.
Yeah, that whole plot doesn't really make sense. Where it's someone who wants to buy the farm, and it seems ominous, but it isn't.
It's a weird thing that the film is doing, in that it's trying to do the Amityville thing of being about economic precarity, and like we sort of get a sense that this is the last idea the father has. Like Dylan McDermott is run out of options, so as I think you must. Like I think no one's first choice is sunflower farmer in North Dakota.
Well, it seems like this was his dream, though, a little bit too.
It also does seem like that's true. It's sort of weirdly expressed, but there's definitely some level of like these are poor people. These are people who have been run out of Chicago on a rail, as it were. And
yeah, and they're not able to pay John Corbett. They're just able to house him, and he's getting points on the back end. Exactly.
And this turns out to have, I mean, John Corbett has his own reasons for agreeing to that, but I get the impression that they really were trying to do like this is family drama. Like they're trying to get actual performances out of the 3 not child family members. They're trying to like, I mean, obviously every horror movie is about like the unspoken traumas, but like I feel like they're trying to make it sort of not just Kristen Stewart is like the final girl in a horror movie, but they're trying to actually give her some level of like a troubled teen melodrama plot. Like I think they really did intend that this was going to be a family drama into which ghosts occur, and that even sort of tracks with how we later find out where the ghosts came from, like why did they die and such. And it's not good because the acting's not up to it, the writing is surely not up to it. And also
from a story by Jason X's Todd Farmer,
which to the credit of Todd Farmer, apparently this has almost nothing in common with what he wrote other than being set at a sunflower farm.
Oh, and that's the best choice.
And in fact, this film's sequel, The Messengers to the Scarecrow, is apparently a more direct filming of the screenplay he wrote. I'm sorry, prequel.
Oh.
This film's prequel.
Interesting.
So
yeah,
when we do our sequels part of the thing in December, we'll have to be sure to put the Scarecrow on our options list.
Oh yeah, I was gonna mention that. I'm extremely excited that will get to live on that list. It is a permanent entry on that January poll.
But no, so it's just not a good family drama, and B, you can't play the black and white family gets murdered opening scene and then expect us to be in any doubt that we're watching a horror movie. Like, we're not here to see family drama. We're here to see ghosts. You also start giving us ghosts in, like, 10 minutes after the film has started. So, like, it immediately starts undercutting the family drama. And that just leaves a lot of gunky material that's trying to do work that I don't believe in, and I don't think the film believes in it.
No, it's just not engaging in any real way. And let's talk. We've been skirting around this. Let's talk about Kristen Stewart and her performance.
Let's talk about Kristen Stewart. Definitely not the worst member of the cast.
No, and I think there's moments where she's doing something very valuable, and then moments where she's blinking a lot.
I would say this is... So we've had this moment of reevaluating Kristen Stewart, and it started really, for critics, I think, with The Clouds of Sils Maria back in 2014, I think. And I think there has been a tendency to look at her work in the Twilight films, which I am no Twilight revisionist. I think they are bad films. I think she is bad in them. But I think we have sort of come to an understanding she's not bad in them because she's talentless, which is what people, including myself, were saying in the 2000s. It's because she was very bored by the material. And who wouldn't be bored by the material? And I think there's been some tendency to sort of roll that back through her career as a whole and be like, oh no, she was always good. Look at Panic Room. It was just the Twilights. She's not good in this, right? As you say, she does a lot of blinking. And I think possibly what we're seeing is that this was also a very boring role for her. Because why would it not be? What is interesting about this role? I do think she's good in that basement sequence. I think she is good when she's good when she's, generally speaking, dealing with her brother, I think.
Yes.
Like
and there's... Yes?
I think she's where that plot line actually comes to life.
Yes, and there's a scene where she's, like, being protective of her brother in the hallway. It's before she picks him up, and there's, like, this whole gag where the ghost is kind of walking up behind her. But I think it's the beginning of that scene, and you can see her looking around and inspecting the space, and you can see the character thinking and evaluating and processing and being tense, and that's a really good moment, but there's not a lot of those. Right,
no, and that's actually one of the specific moments I was thinking of, is like, that's, again, as you say, we see her thinking. That's never easy to do, and I think it's very easy for schlock filmmakers to sort of not give us those moments and for actors to not take them, so we do get that. I think that is valuable. But everything involving generically cute basketball boy is bad. It's quite bad.
No, it's super bad. There is no reason to shoehorn him into the third act here. He just kind of shows up to do nothing.
Pretty much.
He is cute, so thanks Dustin Milligan for, keeping that up. But yeah, there's nothing to offer with that. She goes dead when she's talking to him. And I do think that speaks to, I think, what we're seeing here and in Twilight and stuff, because Kristen Stewart has since come out and in her own words, very gay. And I think that opening herself up in that way really allowed her to open herself up as an actress as well, because there's not this part of herself that she's hiding from the world.
Sure.
So when she has to play these like really straight characters, it's just in this early part of her career, it is this thing that is kind of actively poisoning her, and it shows.
I think that's a fair. I think it's accurate. I do think that she has given other good performances. She gave other good performances before she came out. I'm not actually entirely sure when she came out, but I think it was post-Twilight. It was entirely post-Twilight, right?
Yeah, it was post-Twilight. And I'm not saying she was bad, but I think that there are moments where you can feel the conflict in there.
For sure. I guess for me, I would just point to, we have both Adventureland and The Runaways as, I think, films where she's good. And in Adventureland, she's even good in a context where she has to be sexually attracted to Jesse Eisenberg, which I view as being a feat in and of itself.
Yeah, maybe that felt abstract enough.
I like that. But so I think 2007 era Kristen Stewart is capable of giving a better performance than the one she gives here. Again, I don't love her in Into the Wild, but I think she comes as close as anyone does to giving a good performance in that film, which I think as a whole is quite bad. So I think there's definitely some level of she's not interested in the material. I think, as you point out, she's not really willing to open herself up to the acting process in a way because she's sort of dealing with being closeted. But also I think she's 16 years old. And she's not there yet.
No, yeah, it's all these things kind of working in tandem. But the Kristen Stewart that we're seeing in even her like more recent like mainstream pictures, not just, you know, Personal Shopper or the indie stuff or Spencer or whatever, like what she's doing in Underwater or Happiest Season on Hulu, or even that Charlie's Angels reboot. She's doing interesting things
100%.
with these kind of stock characters.
And I guess that to me is the difference. When she found roles that were giving her something to chew on back in the late 2000s, she was chewing on it. She has now hit the point where she's able to find the thing that's worth working on, even in bad roles. And I think Underwater's a perfect example of that. Like it's not an interesting character, but she's good. She's good at it. Oh
yeah. No, yeah, and that's the thing of Kristen Stewart. But yeah, in this movie, she is very far from having gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else before we? I have some other things that I would like to throw out to lambast. But are we done talking about Kristen Stewart?
I don't really think I have a whole lot else to say. I mean, obviously we came to this film through Kristen Stewart, and I don't think she humiliates herself. It's lots of young actors, especially women, go through I had to be in a couple horror movies phase. She's neither the best nor the weakest member of this ensemble. I will say I think this is the only time ever that I would comfortably say yes, Dylan McDermott gave my favorite performance in this movie.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, sure, that's probably right. But yeah, so that definitely happened. But let me tell you what. Whatever the fuck the Pang brothers were deciding to do with the camera in this movie is deeply upsetting to me. Because there are ways to break the rules of cinematography that do work for a film, and even especially a horror film, because it is meant to be disorienting and discombobulating. But you need to lay the table for that kind of thing to happen. Like when Jean-Luc Godard is, having a character in Breathless like ride a motorcycle to the left and then the next cut to the right. He's laying the table for this style that is going to be a thing that he's doing throughout the film.
Comparing The Messengers to the work of Jean-Luc Godard is some me shit to do, and I'm very glad you just did it.
Thank you. But I'm just saying they pull out these moments where they are breaking from conventional cinematography 30 minutes after making an extremely plotting conventional movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how you do it. And there's that scene that I talked about right after that pretty good acting moment where she's holding her little brother and the ghost is coming up right behind her. It crosses the 180-degree line in such an egregious way, and it cuts to different angles on her face within the space of the same cut.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a deeply ugly scene that actively revolts against getting the story across.
Cutting from one shot of a character in a given shot scale to another shot of the same character in the same shot scale is probably my least favorite single thing that people do that they think is cool.
Yes.
Like, I think you can make it work. I don't think you can always make it work. I think you first off can only really make it work in like very rhythmic things, like in a music sequence perhaps. But you see this trick every time the editor and director are just a little bit too clever, right? Because you don't get the ability to do that in coverage. You have to like decide this is what you want to do. And every single time I see that in a movie like this, it always just pisses me off. It pisses me off even worse than Crossing the Line does. And I am a zealot about not crossing the line. So no, I'm totally on board with you. This movie's editing pattern it's boring until it's bad.
Yes, and the single worst scene in the movie is Kristen Stewart confronting John Corbett in the cornfield, and the camera starts spinning around them, and then it cut. So it's in a wide shot, kind of master shot of the both of them, the camera spinning, and then it cuts to a close up of Kristen Stewart where the camera's spinning in one direction, and then it cuts to John Corbett where the camera's spinning in the other direction, and then back to her and it's spinning again. It is the most dizzying, insulting thing I've ever seen.
I have to be honest, and by the time we got to the point in the plot where Kristen Stewart was confronting John Corbett in the cornfield, the film had ceased its magnetic pull on my attention, and I may or may not have been on my laptop for these shots in question because I don't specifically remember them, but it definitely feels like a play this movie would have made.
Yeah, I will send you the video.
That was not what I was saying.
I shared it in the Bride of AE chat on the Discord, so if anyone's interested, you might have to do some scrolling, but it's in there somewhere.
Okay.
But it's intense. It's a lot. It is bad.
I know. I can imagine, because it's another sticky thing, right? Like, it's sort of like the cutting from close up to close up. It's a trick people do, and it goes wrong routinely when people try to do it. So I easily see what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it turns out you're in luck. I deleted the video from my phone.
Oh no!
So...
Well, I think I have access to the movie on Vudu for another 20 hours. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll make sure to get that in there. I mean, and the last thing I have to say about the movie is that it does do a brave horror movie thing in that it has a happy ending and it doesn't undercut it with like a spooky ghost showing up at the end to go, evil still exists.
I mean, at this point, there are no spooky ghosts left. I think this is also when I was first going through and watching horror movies, because this movie comes out, I think, about 18, 20 months into my career as a film critic. So, and if you're morbidly curious, reviews up on the site. I don't like it. I don't like the way it was written, but hey, it's up there. I'm not gonna go purging my past. I'm no Stalinist. So I'm at this point in my development still articulating, like, what do I see in movies and what are the patterns I'm seeing and what am I attending to? And I think this is one of the points where I really, really became aware that a thing that ghost movies in particular can do and often do that really pisses me off is they explain the ghosts in a way that makes it impossible to find them threatening. And this movie does that fairly quickly, I think. Like, it is not terribly far into the film, and by not terribly far, I mean we're still in the second half of the film, but early in the second half, that we figure out that they're murder victims, and they're the messengers, right? They're trying to communicate, like, oh no, we were murdered, be wary of our murderer. And that defangs horror to me, and every single time I see this in a ghost story, to me the worst thing a ghost story can do is explain the ghosts, really, because they never are scary once they've been explained. And this was one of the films where I really just felt that, because it becomes such a, like, there's nothing scary happening anymore at this point. Like, for most of this film's third act, it is a purely human threat, which isn't what I signed up for. And I mean, I take your point. Yes, it's good that there's no, like, last minute stinger, but what conceivably would that stinger have been, given the parameters of the story?
You are treating this like they would have believed in the sanctity of that kind of thing, and I don't think that is the case.
That is fair. That is a good point.
They definitely could, or they could have had a new John Corbett ghost show up or some horrible bullshit. Yeah, because we haven't specifically said it, but yeah, the third act villain is, it turns out, like, John Corbett was the killer of this family, and he starts just Amityvilling it up again and kind of trying to murder this family.
And also, you said at one point, and I don't know if you did this deliberately, it has a muddy third act. Was that because he tries to pull her into the mud?
He does?
He does.
So that's something. There's mud in this movie, everyone.
And then Dylan McDermott pulls her out of the mud, and it's how the family bonds, because he doesn't let his daughter drown in the mud, and apparently this is heartwarming as opposed to just like a plot beat.
Well, it's like whenever a father, like, the mother goes out of town and the father's taking care of the kid, and everyone's like, "What a hero!"
Okay, that's fair.
So yeah, he stopped his daughter from drowning in the mud. What a great dad of the year.
And to be fair, it's not like Penelope Ann Miller keeps her from drowning in the mud, because she is. Would this movie be meaningfully different if there was a dead mom? Like, does she as
Oh,
a character,
no.
as a performance, add anything to this film that it does not otherwise have?
Absolutely not. I mean, I guess she does fuel the tension between the daughter and the parents because she's like, "You can't go driving," but it doesn't need her to do that. If anything, I wish she was more evil. The mom.
That would be fair, honestly. That would at least give it some texture.
Yeah, like I wish she was kind of like the mom in Elves, who shuts down her daughter's bank account and drowns her cat in the toilet.
I was gonna say, what if it's like she was colluding with John Corbett this whole time, and she's the one who actually bought this particular sunflower farm, and they're lovers.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great.
That would be so much
Love
better.
to see a John Corbett and Penelope Ann Miller sex scene with a ghost.
Well, now you made it very exciting. So now I'm really disappointed this movie is didn't get made that way. But no,
Maybe the sequel has a scene like that.
Hopefully.
Anyway, and yeah. Anything else vis-a-vis The Messengers?
no, I mean it's such a nothing movie, and I frankly think if Kristen Stewart's career had not started immediately taking off. So this comes out in April of 2007. Into the Wild is that fall. Twilight's the next year. Adventureland is the year after that. So she is like on the brink. This is her last like jobbing actor role, really, if I'm not mistaken. I can verify that real fast, but this is like where Kristen Stewart suddenly becomes like a fairly prominent leading lady with like some amount of box office and critical attention, if not at this point critical acclaim. And I guess that's not entirely true. She's got a couple more like movies in 2008, but this is getting towards the end of that part of her career. If that hadn't happened, I don't think there would be anything to distinguish this movie from a dozen other movies that came out in the second half of the 2000s. It's just a J-horror knockoff with very flat characters and very flat scare scenes.
Yeah. No, it is the epitome of the 2-star movie.
Yeah. Which did
Where
not keep you from giving it 2.5 stars on Letterboxd.
Did I?
You might have.
Maybe. I think Dustin Milligan's cute, and that does count for things.
I mean, I'm not gonna yuck your gum.
Yeah, thank you. But also, he's cuter now, and I can just imagine what he looks like now and kind of paste it over that in my head. So.
I don't know if I know what he looks like now. I don't know that I've seen him in anything other than this, so I can't really speak to sort of who he is now.
No, that's totally fair. The thing is that he's not like a famous person, but he's like kicking around. So he was in A Simple Favor. He was the brother in the flashbacks of Anna Kendrick. He was also like when he was a Canadian actor, he was basically an extra on the roller coaster in Final Destination 3.
Okay.
Like he's not like, you've seen him in things, but you would never have a reason to notice him.
Sure, I'm seeing that as I look at his career.
Yeah, but Schitt's Creek is the one thing that anyone would know, but
Okay.
I think he's hot. I'm sending you a newer picture.
I thank you. That's a kindness.
Yeah, anyway. So that's the end of this, I think.
I think we've exhausted the potential to talk about The Messengers.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody. That's going to be the end of our conversation about that. I think we talked for longer than we anticipated we would anyway. For this is the end of our Oscars Skeletons month. Next month, we're going to have another Patreon suggestion. This is the Patreon from our patron, Gavin McDowell. He wants us to cover Ray Harryhausen films. Ray Harryhausen and horror are kind of not... They're like... The Venn diagrams are kissing, but we're kind of going a sci-fi route, and I'm excited to explore that.
I'm excited. I am a massive fan, as I think is very, very well attested to at this point. I love Harryhausen's films. I love his work, so I'm super excited for that to be something we look at.
Yeah, so if you're a member of the Patreon, please check out the poll there. If you're not on the Patreon, you can join the Patreon. And if you're at the $1 level or above, you're going to be able to vote there. As far as, the other things, you can find me on Twitter at It's Raining Brens. That's where all of my other stuff is. You can find more of my reviews and Tim's at alternateending.com. Follow us on Twitter where we're tweeting all the time. And until next time, thanks so much for listening, and have a great 2 weeks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy the Oscars if you're watching them.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.